Thank you for joining us, dear listener. You're tuning into another episode. You are tuning into a Bello Dells Gaming Theater production. Bello Dells Gaming Radio, bringing you fantastic tales of adventure from lands foreign and time uncounted. Taking on the ever-important role of the Master of Ceremonies and Lord of the Dice, the incomparable Iam Anabar. More characters and players will be joining us shortly, but today I will be playing the character of Anthony, under the assumed identity of Jockin Burnson, now stands huddled outside of the wet city walls of a settlement near the highlands that are his home. He holds in his shaking hands a missive.
You've received a missive in the mail responding to a letter that your father had sent for you previously. It is from a gentleman named Cragg, and Cragg states that your illustrations are lifelike and your descriptions incredibly informative. I would be very interested in including you in a publication that I will be printing in the next few months. Please respond if you would like to be published in my new book.
Yeah, the first thing he's going to do is respond under the pseudonym Jockin Burham. That's his, that's the alias that he does all of his publications under. My most benevolent patron, Cragg, I write to you most enthusiastically with the affirmative that indeed I would be honored to continue my work at your side, and I will be seeing you at your earliest possible convenience and ease of travel on my behalf. Thank you.
For 3 gold pieces, you find you're able to make your way onto a ship that is taking you to Saltmarsh. The accommodations are barren. There's basically a tent that has been set up on top of the deck, and you share this with many other people. Most of the time you are traveling, you keep your hood over your head. You don't converse much with people. I don't know how well you fare at sea. Perhaps you're just fine. Perhaps occasionally you find the urge to vomit. But this trip is absolutely no frills. The 4th week of travel, you find yourself in a very thick fog.
I imagine that Anthony has found these, even though his frame is very large, he's looked for the darkest, smallest space beneath the ship. Like probably in like the hold, like the back corner, maybe behind a beam, behind the last bed. He's not even on like a hammock or anything. He's on the ground. In an inhuman way. An animal that's almost like catatonic. He eats the bare minimum, doesn't speak to anyone, so everybody kind of gives him a wide berth. So if it's foggy outside, I don't even think he'd know.
And as you lie in the dark reaches of the ship's belly, you hear the ship bell clang out 3 times. From up high, the sound carries, "Saltmarsh! We've reached Saltmarsh!"
When he hears that, I think that he just sprints out of the hold as quickly as he can to see what the land looks like, how far away is it. At this point now, he simply must be outside. And
Yeah, as you reach the top, upper deck, you find that the ship is very gently rocking, the water's calm. You glide smoothly into the bay. Looking up through the fog, you see large cliffs lining the coastline. What appears to be a valley in between these large cliffs. You see buildings, some farmland, the city of Saltmarsh. Docks line the entire waterfront of this city. The town kind of fade in and out of view as thick wisps of fog come in and out, carried on the gentle breeze. You know that soon you'll be docking at one of the piers there.
I feel like as he sees the shore, he's seriously considering just like jumping off and trying to like make more for the wilderness rather than land directly in the port. Like that's his natural instinct as soon as he sees the shore. Like he's suddenly not looking forward to the landing of the ship, but he suppresses his instinct to swim like a dog towards the shore, kind of hoists his small pack, and stands stiffly.
And as the gangplank lands, you find yourself free to explore this new land.
The orc steps off of the gangplank. He definitely wants to get off of the dock and onto feel the solid earth underneath his bare feet.
So as you walk off the dock and your feet meet cobblestone, you find yourself walking through a crowd, and all along the side that lines the water, there's little stalls of fishmongers that are asking you, pleading you, trying to talk you into buying. A rough-looking fellow wearing a bandana and cut-off sleeves picks up a stick that seems to have about 7 fishes tied to it. Each of them, small to medium in size, and some of them have spines running down their back, others have strange fins. He says, "You look hungry. Please buy a fish. They're the freshest you can get."
I pointedly ignore him, bend as over and look as closely as I can to these fish without my eyes getting wet. It's dead, correct?
Correct, they're dead.
These are quite fine specimens, I can tell, but not quite fresh enough for my liking.
Fresh, is it? They don't get fresher than this. Well, let me clarify. They don't get fresher than the fish I have. He turns around and he has behind his table what seems to be a white cloth. Pulling the white cloth back, you see that he has buckets, and inside of the buckets are salt water with fish inside. He says, "Surely you can't argue that they can get fresher than this. Pulled out of the ocean earlier this morning and kept in there prime."
As soon as he sees that, Jokin's eyes just like tunnel vision on the movement of the fish, and he comes over and he doesn't even like ask the guy. He just like reaches his hand in and he's just going to attempt to try and like grab one of the fish. Can't help himself. He's
Make a dexterity save.
18 over here.
An 18, you catch a fish deftly in your hand. It's one of the larger ones that's swimming around in the bucket, and you lift it up out of the water as the gentleman watches.
Yeah, and just like wide-eyed, he's going to turn his face to the fishmonger, and I imagine that like his fingers are like piercing already into like even though it's like wriggling, and it's pretty hard to hold a big live
Yeah.
wriggling fish, but his fingers are like dug into the flesh.
Holding his hands to his head, "You're going to have to pay for that. Those are the freshest ones. You can't just kill them without saying anything."
He just looks at him very glassy eyed and he says, "How much for the fishmonger?"
And he looks at you and he says it's going to be one gold piece, and you can pick out three other fish.
Yeah, and he fishes out the a gold coin and readily presses it into his hand.
Yeah, you can see that he expected this to be more trouble than it actually was. And he looks at the gold piece and he says, I can tell you're not from around here, are you?
Yeah, and even as he speaks, Jockin just like takes the fish as soon as he gives him the coin and just
Hmm.
takes a bite out of it, like right there.
Oh,
And
damn. Raw
after
dog.
after a couple of bites, he looks over and he says, "I get three more."
The fisherman is slightly disgusted, uh, but he's trying to keep the look from his face, and he goes, yes, that's correct. You get three more. And he says, is there anything that you need to know about town? I can tell that you're not exactly accustomed to things around.
Jockin bites the head off of the fish. "No, I am quite new." And he looks at the notebook. "I am looking for one called Crag."
Crag? Yeah, I know Crag. Everybody in town does. He proceeds to give you directions, and they're in ways that you can understand them, telling you to go past so many buildings, take a turn here, go past so many buildings, take a turn there. He seems to do this in the simplest way possible, as he picks up that you're not used to a whole lot of social spaces. Um, he thanks you for the business, and then he says, what do you need to see old Crag for? He generally doesn't talk with me.
"I am to do some illustrations for him."
Illustrations, he says. I don't even know what that means, but that sounds like the kind of fancy stuff Crag would be up to.
He says, "I am an artist." And
He
with
goes,
a
an
with a
artist, huh?
with a 13, he is going to do another dexterity check um, to grab the second fish.
Yeah, he gets it.
It's another bite out of its wriggling body.
The fisherman seems to have become accustomed to the way you're eating the fish now. Well, with an appetite as voracious as yours, please come back and buy fish anytime. I'll make sure that they're the freshest on the pier. And he looks at you, and with like a glint in his eye, he says, wriggling.
Jockin nods his head solemnly and appreciatively. He'll stay there unless the fishmonger kind of shoos him away.
He doesn't? No.
Just one after the other, he'll eat the fish.
As you're eating the fishmonger stops paying attention to you, and he starts yelling out, fish so fresh you can just eat him right as. Look at this fella here. He can't even wait to get him home and kick him. He just uses you like as a little ad, and he starts yelling out to the people.
Jokin likes this fishmonger and he remembers his face.
Hmm.
And once he's done with his fish, he will nod solemnly, proceed in the directions that he was given.
From the dock area that you're currently at, you look toward inland, and you see lots and lots of buildings. The buildings closest to you seem to make up a large estate, a main building with several smaller buildings. All of these are surrounded by a wall that encloses the estate. However, you see that this estate also has its private dock, which reaches out into the water. Uh, Walking past this wall, you reach what appears to be a main road. Following it, you continue walking along as you find yourself slowly gaining altitude. Looking further, you notice that you are beginning to ascend one of these seaside cliffs that you had noticed earlier. Not that you are ascending it vertically, more so that you are walking up a hill, and to the right of you is a vertical drop off that is getting higher and higher and higher as you. To your left hand side, you see a large building. On the other side of the building is a cemetery, and over by the cemetery, you see several smaller buildings, but the large building that's close to the cemetery says Craig's Printing Press and Publications.
I have arrived at last. Jokin will take the time to pull a rag from his travel sack, and remembering some of the basic courtesies taught to him by his father, knowing that he's about to enter a home. Down at the docks, he wasn't really thinking about manners because that was in the outside as far as he's concerned. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. He's about to enter somebody's house.
Yes, it's like going into the cabin to see his father. He'd have to make himself clean and, presentable. So he has a small ritual as he makes sure that all of the scales have been removed from his clothing and his hands. Once he feels satisfied, he straightens himself and adjusts the collars of his rough cloak, makes his way into the printing house.
As you open the door, you see a little cashier area. There's a gnome sitting at the front. Craig's Printing Press, how may I help you?
Hello, I am Jakun. I am told that there is work for me here.
You must receive something from Craig, or what?
He reaches into his cloak and produces the letters that he's received, signature of the stamp from the publishing house.
Uh-huh. After looking at these, he goes, well, Craig must like you. He doesn't really talk this much to many people. He says, please go right here through these curtains and wait back there, and Craig will be with you shortly.
He nods and turns his glassy gaze to the curtain and proceeds.
You find yourself in a small room that has a writing table. The writing table is set up so that there is paper and ink and quill on both sides, as it is appears that it's kind of like where people would talk business, write down their notes, and etc. After a short time, a half orc walks in. A big fellow. He's probably about just shy of 7 feet tall, well muscled, but wearing nice clothing. He has a monocle in one. Hello, Jotun, is that you?
Greetings. Your home is enormous. It has more than one room.
He laughed. More than one room. Rightly so, rightly so. Jotun, you must understand how elated I am to finally meet you. I must say I'm quite fascinated by your illustrations.
This pleases me greatly, sir. I have greatly enjoyed your publications as of late.
Well, we're working on a Leaves of Saltmarsh edition that's going to be coming out soon, so I tell you what, I'll get you a free copy as soon as we finish it up. However, what I'm most interested in is, well, Jolton, how would you like to be a dedicated member that is investing into the production quality of future publications?
I am assuming you mean a extended partnership.
An extended partnership indeed. Jolton, I find that I love your illustrations, and so do the readers. In the few pieces that you've sent me that I've managed to publish, I must confess, some of the creatures and things that you've sent me I don't know anything about and have never seen before, so they went unpublished. But in the pieces that you've sent me that we were able to put into publishing, the feedback from the readers has been incredibly positive. They find your attention to detail quite remarkable, and we would love to feature you in many more on. However, he says, pointing towards himself, don't get to go run out and gather the source material for you. One of the things that draws me to you is that you seem to be rather well equipped to going out and studying the source material yourself, he says, with a question mark on the end.
I am willing to begin my expedition immediately, if so desired.
He claps his hands together. Excellent, excellent. And I must say, this has me rather excited. Let's start somewhere basic, and we can move on from there. Now, if you can provide me with an illustration of some of the local wildlife, the flora and fauna, then we can introduce them into our publications as you gather more material. Now, before we get any further, I have two specific requests. The local anaconda and crocodile are both fascinating creatures. Would you be so kind as to go out, create an illustration for me, and bring it back so that we can include it in the press?
I have heard in some publications of the early expeditions into Saltmarsh the existence of such a creature, but I have yet to see any image at all myself. It would be my greatest pleasure to discover these creatures for myself and to share them with your readers.
Yeah, he gives you like descriptions of them so that you would be able to make them out if you were to see them. And he explains that they're quite common, and that since they're quite common in the area, it's something that if people were to see in pen and ink, that they would kind of get a kick out of it, and it would be something that they can relate with. They're thinking of including it regularly in like the border of the town newspaper, and he thinks it would be very cool to have your high quality illustrations be printed regularly.
Very cool indeed, sir.
He tells you that if you were to head west of Saltmarsh, after about a 2 days journey, you would hit some what he calls Propa swamp. It should be very easy to find both an anaconda and a crocodile. He also says that if you follow the coastline, you may just come across a crocodile or an anaconda regardless. But for the most concentration and the highest likelihood, if you head to the swamp, it should be quite easy.
These swamps, I have heard, are an unparalleled environment of the diversity of flora and fauna. I do believe that this is the place that I have been so eager to see since first I heard of this place.
He looks you dead in the eye. Joker, if you were to illustrate all day, every day, for the rest of your life, you would not begin to finish cataloging the sheer flora and fauna diversity that one can find in the swamps here.
He looks at him blankly and gives a slow blink. We will see.
That's the spirit I'm talking about. That's the spirit that I was hoping you would exhibit. I must say that you are a little bit more lively in your correspondence, but personal effects aside, I look forward to doing business with you. 30 gold pieces if you manage to get me a good illustration of crocodile and an anaconda. Here you go, I will shake on it. And he hands out his hand.
His neck kind of cranes down unnaturally to look at the extended hand, and in a very machine-like manner, reaches out and squeezes his before letting go quickly and returning his hand to the side.
As you try to let go and release your hand, you feel a powerful grip encompass your hand as he starts shaking your hand vigorously. Good sir, good sir. I look forward to doing a tremendous amount of business with you. I say our publications will be top-notch.
Yeah, upon feeling like that grip, there's an immediate animal instinct that arises from Anthony. Though his hand released, perhaps the benefactor does not realize, but for a moment, Anthony's eyes narrow, like his teeth grit, and the orc's tusks are like flared. But quickly enough, he suppresses it and just kind of allows his arm to be limply shaken up and down enthusiastically.
After this, he grabs your shoulder and looks you in the eye, and he says, "My good fellow, I must say, if you are headed out to the swamps, I will give you this little bit of tiddlywinkle of advice. I suggest visiting Kester's leather goods before you go out there. I hear she's willing to pay high coin for high-quality leather hides that you're able to procure out in the world. Now, speak with her on the details if you so choose, but it seems like this may be one of those good old two birds and one stone scenarios, my good fellow."
Eyes are very glassy, just kind of leveled at the man's chest, trying to suppress his impulse for violence at having his shoulder grasped.
Yeah.
I will be sure to investigate all avenues. Now I am ready to begin the investigation. Begin the investigation. Begin the investigation.
1 second. Well, he thinks you're fine. Okay, yeah. He lets go of your shoulder and he goes, "Very well, man. Report back to me as soon as you finish the illustrations. I tell you what, give me a heads up and I'll even have breakfast ready. I look forward to seeing you."
He nods solemnly and turns his back to leave the residence.
Yeah, and you do that. You walk out. What greets your eye is to your right-hand side lies the cemetery, and to the left-hand side lies the open room that looks out over the cliffs, over the water.
The cemetery is up against cliffs that look out over the water.
Correct.
I think he's going to walk through the graveyard to look out over the cliffs. Up the coastline, which Crag had mentioned was one avenue of finding a crocodile and anaconda, and just kind of take in from this, since it was such a climb to get up to this place, take advantage of the view, and this is the moment he begins to attune to the terrain that he is going to be traveling through soon.
Yeah, absolutely. The cool air whips at your face as the fog, it carries quite a bit of moisture. Looking out over the water, you see that the sky is kind of a dim gray. The ocean rolls gently. Beneath you, you see another layer of grassland that eventually evolves into buildings that line the water. Looking down, the cliffs must be at least several hundred feet, almost straight down. I mean, it's probably like a 70-degree angle. Looking down your right-hand side back towards town, you see that a river splits a section of the town off, a small section, maybe only a fourth of the town lies on the other side of the tributary, and a large bridge lays across the water, connecting the two pieces. On the other side of the tributary, you see grassland and a sudden cutoff, which you assume would be another sheer cliff if you were to climb over there to the top section.
Mm-hmm.
Looking further inland, uh, you see a small forest that seems unusually congregated. This forest is strange. It's like somebody took a paintbrush and just picked a random spot in the scenery and plotted a little forest there. Now, by a little forest, I would say the entire thing is maybe a mile across.
Mm-hmm.
This runs right up to the tributary, and then beyond the forest lies swampland.
I think that all thoughts of the all thoughts uh, of checking in with the leather goods store kind of fall from his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think this part of his ritual of attunement to new terrain is he's going to pull out his artist's tools and he's going to begin making a rough map of what geological features he sees in the distance so that he can review it later. Not really taking any time to color, like it's not a landscape painting, but it is well detailed and taken from the perspective of these cliffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll go ahead and add that to my inventory.
Please do.
And this is looking to the north of the coast, is what I'm kind of imagining, is the sort of region that he'd be doing. Oh, I see.
Well,
I see.
yeah, there you go. Check your Discord quickly. The map is what you have scribbled down.
Dope.
Now, uh, it is beginning to be evening. It's not quite dark yet. You'd say there's about another 2 hours before it's like proper dark. Uh, you have been up on this hillside, um, drawing, and you finally finish your illustration. What would you like to do?
That done, he's just going to, like, without expression, put away his artist's tools, and he's just going to head directly, as the eagle flies, to the heart of the swamp.
Okay, yeah, you're just gonna go straight towards it. Please roll a nature check.
Oof.
Yeah, it's completely new territory. You just start walking towards the swamp. The ground, surprisingly, seems to be getting squishier underneath your feet. You start to make bad timing as it's becoming kind of a slog as you just start wading through what looks like it should be solid ground will suddenly give way to plants that seem to be hovering on the top of water, muddy rivets that appear to be solid that will suddenly suck you in and you have to pull yourself out of. And the bugs, there's so many bugs. You just can't believe the amount of bugs that you're swatting away that come and try to drink your blood.
Yeah, he is fascinated and uncomfortable from the attention of the bugs, but I don't think he makes any attempt to swat them or any noticeable reaction to it at all. Though he is becoming very aware that he is not navigating in this environment correctly, and he's just going to start, just slowly, infatigably, at least for now, just going to continue on.
And you do. However, you're making a lot of noise, you're sloshing, you're jostling around, you're brushing things aside. Your ranger training is starting to tell you that if you're going to be looking for these animals, you would prefer to catch them by surprise rather than the other way.
And with that in mind, as he comes to this realization, I think he'd like to make a perception check to thoroughly examine his surroundings.
Please. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, as you look around you, you happen to notice that there is a small hill nearby. Now, this hill seems to stick up out of the goop and seems to be more solid ground with a tree sticking out of it. Um, the tree seems to be in good health, and you kind of figure that you'd be able to at least get on some solid ground up there and figure something out.
Yes. And upon seeing that, he thinks perfect. And he's going to approach the hill, and as soon as he gets to the tree, he will climb it as high as he can.
Doing so, you look out into the swamp, and you are a little bit amazed by its vastness. You don't see the end of it. Looking back the other way, you can clearly see the highlands and Saltmarsh, so you know which way you need to go in order to get back. Looking into the swamp, maybe about 350 feet away or so, you see a large dark gray shape kind of pushing the reeds aside as it walks along, a crocodile based upon the description you had received earlier. But you can't see it well. You just kind of make the overall shape of it, pushing through the tall grass.
Hmm. Okay. He thinks this is most excellent. And while he's up here, he's going to go ahead and remove his pack, strap his belt knife to his side, and throw his longbow over his back. And in the moonlight, he is going to assume his true form, and
Hmm.
and Anthony is going to skitter down the trunk of the tree and on all fours begins attempting to stealth up to this crocodile.
13. Okay, let's have a look at something. Hmm. Yeah, so it is unfamiliar terrain. However, you have some experience so far. You are uh, making your way step by step, and you kind of look at the ground carefully before you make each step. The reeds and tall grass, you're like making the effort of putting your hands out in front of you and then pushing them aside and then stepping through them and then kind of doing like a breaststroke type of motion while you're carefully watching your foot placement on the ground beneath you. You seem to be making your way fairly quietly. You get up within range of your bow. It doesn't seem to be startled. You are able to see it fairly well. So I'd say you're within about 100 feet.
Mm-hmm. About how long is this crocodile?
You kind of like hold your thumb out and hold it up to the crocodile and then run your thumb across, gauging how many thumbs it would be. And your thoughts are that it's probably about a 10-foot crocodile.
With his unnaturally long arms, strangely placed elbows, he's going to level his bow, aim for like wherever he sees the lumps of its eyes, just below and behind them, as best as he can see, and he's going to fire.
All right. Please roll with advantage.
18, soft 20.
So either way, it's definitely a hit. So go ahead and roll damage.
Okay, so that's 3 plus 3, so 6.
6. Okay. You hear a large whack as the arrow definitely connects, and then there's a large hissing. It doesn't seem to know where you are, so it starts thrashing around you.
14.
That's a hit.
Oof. 4 damage.
Yeah, as it's kind of thrashing out around a bit wildly, you make the arrow connect. You're not quite sure, but you can tell it wasn't the best shot that you've made. It doesn't seem to have figured out where you're firing from.
Upon seeing it begin thrashing,
Mhm.
it begins to excite Anthony a great deal. He's actually going to drop the bow onto the ground of the swarm. He's going to pull out his dagger and, in a dead sprint, just like leaned very far forward, his arms swinging out ahead of him. He's going to run like a bent over Sasquatch, and he's going to jump onto the back of this crocodile and start stabbing it.
Now you are quite some distance, so you're running up, and it has rolled quite high. You hear a splash, and you're not entirely sure where it's at. You are very close to the area.
Shall I roll a perception?
Yes, please do. Nice.
Yeah.
The trail of its blood is what ends up giving it away. You kind of search wildly, and then you happen to notice a red trail coming from underwater close to a clump of reeds.
The sight of the blood excites him. The slightest bit of movement as he approaches, that's where he's going to leap into the air and begin stabbing downwards. That's a 18.
That's a hit.
So that's a 6.
Absolutely nail it. You stab down, and you think that you catch purchase in one of its eyes as you wiggle your dagger around, and you feel it just dig deeper until it starts thrashing wildly. Water is splashing everywhere. Wow, this crocodile has no luck. It bites out furiously, however, it doesn't seem to be able to hit you. Perhaps it's the dagger in its eye that is keeping it from having any sense of where you actually are.
Yes, once again, stabbing it.
That's a hit, yep. Roll damage.
5 damage.
Describe how you kill it.
Even in the ecstasy of this battle and domination of this wild creature, in the back of his reptilian mind, he is being careful not to damage the other eye, because he knows he will want to document it carefully. And so, as he's like leveraging the dagger into the crocodile's eye, he brings his fist up and clenches his long fingers and drives it like a hammer.
Nice.
He strikes the hilt of the blade, and as it is driven deep, he hears a sick crack, and the crocodile is still.
You hear a death rattle escape from its lungs as the scales on its back quiver just a little bit, and it is now completely still.
He will drag the crocodile back to the hill, heavy as it is. He'll do it for as long as it takes to take it back to what he has claimed is his territory in this glade.
Roll a strength save, and let's just see how quickly you're able to get it back. Oh, quite expeditiously. It really doesn't take you all that long, probably about 30 minutes to drag it back to that hill where your pack is. What would you like to do with it?
It's very late into the night, correct?
Yes, it's late. Probably about 10:30 p.m.
He's going to use his rope to harness the crocodile around its head and underneath its front arms, and he's going to climb the tree. He's going to hoist the crocodile until it's, at least like 6 feet up from the ground of the tree.
Yeah.
And he'll tie it off, and he's going to sleep up in the tree in his true form for the night.
Okay. I would like you to roll a survival check for me, please.
Oof.
What is it?
A 6.
Hoist the crocodile up, you get it tied, it's a little over 6 feet dangling, and you go and you climb up into this tree and you begin to fall asleep. However, every time that you're just on the verge of falling asleep, bugs and more bugs start biting you. At first you ignore it. You keep on thinking, I'm gonna sleep. I'll just fall asleep and they're gonna leave me alone. Lose 1 health point as half of the night has drawn by, and now more and more bugs have started to bite you and sting you and bother you.
Yeah, I think as he gets frustrated throughout the night, and he can no longer just simply ignore them, and he will just like bite it himself like a dog biting at fleas. Though
Hmm.
it doesn't help.
For kicks and giggles, roll a perception check for me.
Damn. 7.
7. These darn bugs, they just won't leave you alone. They're rather distracting, and you're trying to sleep. These stupid bugs just keep on bugging you right as you're about to hit sleep's door. What's your AC?
14.
Suddenly you feel something else bite down on your leg. Feels like a clamp has just been wrapped onto your leg. And it does. Oof. 6 damage.
Oh, damn. Okay. I am unconscious.
Oh, I thought you. Oh, yeah. Fuck. Okay, yeah, you don't know what happened. Some time passes. Go ahead and roll a, what is it called? A life check or whatever?
19.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Give yourself 1 hit point.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up, and a large snake has wrapped itself around your legs. You see that part of its body is wrapped towards the tree, um, and that it is in the process of coiling around your legs. What would you like to do?
Anthony lets loose an inhuman shriek. Its cyclopean eye almost looks like his single white iris, and gets like flushed suddenly blood red. And in that moment, he's going to reach out his dagger in his belt. Yes, he's going to go for that and dig it into the anaconda.
It's completely startled by the shriek you make and your sudden movement. Had no inkling that this was coming. And you take your knife and you jam it straight down into its mouth, and you rip part of its neck. Blood starts. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just realizing. So my favorite enemy is Beast. So I
Hmm.
actually get a +2 to bonus to damage rolls on weapon attacks.
Oh, go ahead and describe how you kill it.
I think in the moment that as soon as it like recoils from Anthony's defense mechanism,
Hmm.
it's that little bit of room, and he just stabs the snake right under the throat, right under its mouth, and in a swift motion drags it down, splitting probably the first 3 feet of its underbelly in a very clean incision.
Yeah, it drops dead. It's clinging to the tree, and you just kind of see it like rope. It just hangs limply from several of the branches as blood gushes down onto the floor.
Yeah, and Anthony is panting. He looks down at his leg where he was bitten before he passed unconscious. Or they're still in the tree, right? Like the anaconda.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're in the tree. The crocodile's hanging from the tree, and the anaconda is now hanging in the tree from the branches.
Yeah, he looks down at the tree, like how much blood of his own has spilled down over the last
Hmm.
period of time. With that, once he realizes the anaconda is dead, I think that he just slumps his back up against the tree and probably just falls right back into unconsciousness.
Do me a favor. However, as badly as he wants to just slump into unconsciousness, he knows the bugs are going to be an issue. Go ahead and roll
Yeah.
a survival check.
Yeah, and I think that even just to aid with his survival check, maybe get
Mhm.
some advantage. Like, though he knows, like, bushcraft, he doesn't like making fires. He doesn't need them to cook and eat, but he knows that the smoke will help if the insects here are anything like the insects of the highlands.
Yeah.
So he's going to pull out his kit to make a fire and probably just pull out a bunch of of whatever plants are around that have lots of moisture and just try and find the ones
Hmm.
that create the most smoke.
Yeah, fire would be generous. It's more of just kind of like a smoldering mound. It lets a bunch of smoke into the air, not enough that affects your breathing or anything, but the bugs definitely seem to take it as a sign that they shouldn't be there, and they leave you alone. You rest and go ahead and roll your hit die to see how much health you recover.
Um, so 5.
Excellent. So go ahead and add 5 back, so you should have a 6 total. And as you are sleeping, the light slowly gains in its intensity, and day has broken. It's not a intense daylight, as there still seems to be quite a bit of cloud cover. However, the grayness lightens and lightens, and at some point your eyes open and you can kind of see clearly, your surroundings as well as like, or I should say, with definition. It's probably about 6:30 in the morning.
As he awakens and the sunlight is starting to hit the glade that he's in, or at least the dawn light is starting to appear, he's going to resume the form of the orc. Jockin will start lowering the anaconda by its tail and dropping it down to the foot of the tree.
Yeah.
Before he begins skinning both of the creatures and documenting their physiology and taking like anatomical drawing, he's going to spend basically this day between skinning and sketching these animals, and even 2 days if it takes him that long. But he's just
Sure.
going to make a camp of this place. But the first thing he does is with the dead anaconda in the tree and the 10
Hmm.
foot or crocodile hanging down from the tree, he's going to go
Hmm.
down and, like, from a distance, make a dope landscape illustration of the swamp, the hill,
Hmm.
and the anaconda and crocodile both in the tree.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And then shall I roll separate survivals for skinning the animals?
Yes, please do. And since you're going to be spending so much time, make them with advantage.
Okay. Here's for the crocodile.
Okay.
Okay. So that's going to be a nat 20 plus or plus
Uh
4
huh.
for the crocodile.
Hmm.
And for the anaconda, not as great. That's a 12 for the anaconda.
Okay. So if you have a little piece of paper nearby or something, I want you to write down one fine hide and one good hide.
Okay. Hold on.
The animals may not be alive, but while you're working, you do find yourself handling lots of raw meat that you killed yourself, and the blood is all over your hands and your arms.
It was a grand hunt to kill these creatures. Kind of hums tunelessly to himself as he's squatting down. He like licks his fingers in between incisions.
Yeah, so it takes a full day and a half. It's about noon on the second day, and you finally finish with your illustrations and with skinning the two animals.
Take the skull of the anaconda. It is a fine specimen, comparatively lightweight uh, to the crocodile. So maybe takes its top 3 vertebrae just to make it a more complete specimen. That is all he'll carry from them is their hides.
And now are you going to head back towards town?
Yes.
Heading back towards town, you find that the ground gets firmer and firmer underneath your feet, and the going gets easier. It's now nighttime, and you still have not reached there. Would you like to carry on through the night?
No, he'll gladly spend another night. And as he makes his camp, the only thing he'd like to do is
Hmm.
like to make a survival check
Okay.
to try and identify what plants burn the best to keep the mosquitoes away. Goof. Not today.
You try messing around with several plants and things. You don't seem to notice any kind of a difference.
Well, it seems that if you burned enough of anything, it'll keep them away.
The real Kino part would be figuring out what you can burn so as not to make enough smoke trail that is noticeable to other people.
Exactly.
You're now kind of back in the highlands, so you don't have to worry about bugs as much. You rest easily, and it's the next morning. You kind of wake up to a familiar terrain being in the highlands now, as you're not far from town, and you can smell the salt on the breeze coming in from the ocean.
Jokin, though stowed, feels a great sense of accomplishment and is eager to see his benefactor's reaction to his illustrations.
Yeah, and having come straight from the cemetery, drawing a straight line back almost, you eventually find yourself again walking through the tombstones and the wrought iron that makes various holy symbols that are placed upon these resting places. You, you see the publishing house up ahead. Going towards the publishing house, you open the door to be greeted by the same gnome who gestures once again to you. He explains to you that Crag is just finishing up his morning coffee and will be in just a moment. However, a moment is too long. The curtains closed aside, and you see him walk in once again in his fine livery, carrying two teacups full of a dark liquid that has a strong, pungent odor that is light and uplifting. Well, my fellow, good to see you once again so soon. Please tell me, did you manage to get the illustrations?
Jokin simply nods glassy-eyed, puts his bag at his feet and reaches into his packs. And as he's leafing through, he says, "These swamps are all I could have hoped for." And as he says that, he retrieves his notepad, begins to rifle first through the first few pages, some drawings from his ship's voyage and from the Highlands, and he gets to the first illustration of the crocodile and the anaconda in the tree.
I don't believe I've ever heard the swamps be referred to that way before, but if you enjoy them, well, this will just be a further double win for both of us. I say, top-notch, good fellow, these are simply outstanding. You must have been right up there next to them. The level of detail is incredible.
The crocodile was a mighty beast, but the anaconda is most cunning.
Cunning indeed. I say they wait just below the water's surface and they grab people that are walking by unsuspecting. You should be on the lookout for them. They never know when they're going to sneak up on you. The swamp is full of many such creatures. I say the anaconda exhibits the persona of the swamp itself.
If it does, then the swamp is most murderous. He flashes the first smile that he has made since he came to Saltmarsh.
Yeah, murderous indeed. As I have promised, 30 gold pieces for the first two illustrations, so do you mind handing them over? And he pulls out a bag of coins.
He takes out the several sheets of anatomical drawings and hands them over, and looks to the drawing of the anaconda and the crocodile in the tree, and does not remove it from the journal and puts the paper back.
He doesn't seem to care that you keep it. He seems to be preoccupied with the anatomical ones. He hands the white teacup in a saucer over to you. Cheers, my good fellow. I think we'll be able to do a great deal of business ahead of us. A great deal.
I should hope so. And he takes the teacup and stares very intensely at Crag
Mm-hmm.
to see what he does, and he makes no move.
Yeah, he holds the teacup out like as to cheers. He waits a second and then he goes the extra mile and clinks his teacup against yours and goes, must not be that way where you come from, huh? And then he sips it. After sipping it, he goes, they call it coffee. Only the best for you, my friend. It comes from the far south in the jungles. It's quite in these days.
Jokin is going to the absolute best of his ability, try and mirror exactly to the smallest inflection to match the
Mm-hmm.
moment of drinking from the teacup. And
Uh-huh.
he leans back and says, "Ah, coffee."
Yes, sir, coffee. I only began drinking it about a year ago myself. When I found out it was old fashioned, I couldn't be left out, now could I?
It was all the fashion.
Yes, quite so. All the fashion, all of the reputable people are drinking it.
Quite so.
My good friend, I am going to get busy with the press. We are going to make copies of this to include in next week's publication. I don't have any further work for you at the moment. However, please, if you come across any unusual beasts or make any illustrations of animals or even flora that you find out there in the wilderness, I would be interested in buying them from you. I will have specific requests, but at the moment, I need to make sure that the next publication is finished according to my standards.
Of course, you can expect me to be in correspondence.
Have you found reasonable accommodations yet so far in the Saltmarsh?
He nods and will set the teacup down. Not too gently or elegantly.
Mhm.
He will sit up and say, "Now, if you will excuse me, I must see a man about some fish."
Quite so. Don't keep. I won't keep you from your seriously important business. Have a good day, Joken, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
He nods glassy eyed and turns away to leave.
And you do. You leave. Are you going to head back towards the dock to look for the fishmonger?
I think this would be a good time to go to the leather shop and show the hides that I have acquired.
Ooh, Lord. Okay. Yes. So you make your way through town. To get to the leatherworkers, you have to go through town all the way over to the large stone bridge, cross it, and then go up the tributary a bit. These are probably the most people you've ever seen in your life. As you're making your way through the town, you know where to go based off the directions you've received. But it is a little bit distracting as you kind of have to deal with crowds of people and smells and sounds that you're not used to.
So many different faces and mannerisms and voices.
Some small observations as you're making your way through town, you realize that about 85% of the population here is human. The second race that you would find here would be dwarves, followed by half. There is a very small smattering of anything else. You see a couple elves, you've seen a gnome, you have seen a lizard folk.
I think that the first time he sees a lizard person, I think he's
Mm-hmm.
very fascinated by them. And perhaps might even, like, from a distance, observe them. And whatever lizard person he sees, he's going to observe or trail them long enough to he wants to acquire that form. Though to actually like
Okay.
assume the identity of somebody he's following, he's not doing that. It's more just to have like a very like if you were to just like look at a lizard person for
Mm-hmm.
like a half hour and he were to
Yeah.
assume their form, it would be a lizard person, but it would have that kind of uncanny valley effect.
Yeah. It's like mostly a lizard person.
Yeah, mostly a lizard person, but
There's no role required for that, as I know, for learning a new form. The lizard person seems to be trading for what appears to be metal weapons. They're trying to buy like a two-handed axe or something like that.
so long as nobody's bothering him, he's just gonna like stand there. It probably is like a little obvious that he's just like standing across the street, just like looking over this way.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. Oi. Oh yeah. Hey you.
Is this the lizard person?
No. A sound seems to be coming from maybe barely even waist high, just to your left. And looking down, you see a halfling sitting there smoking on a long pipe filled with tobacco.
Oh yeah. Not polite to stare, but that we've never seen a lizard folk. I can't blame you.
He just like cranes his face down, his glassy eyes looking at the halfling, and in response, he only stares at him.
Just a bit of a stare, or you just stare. Is that how it is?
I am quite perplexed at your size.
Never seen a halfling either.
Your proportions are strange.
Halflings is what we're called, and your life is going to be much better off now that you've met one.
Please explain.
Well, to simply know that existence ought to be well enough to make your life better just that itself. Halflings are wonderful people, so. And he stops for a second. He says, you're going to be dead. That's a box all day. You can drop this book sometime. My name's Wix.
You are Winston.
That's right. My name's Winston. Honest goods and honest money.
I am Joken.
At least that's what I like to say. Well, pleasure to meet you, Joker. Pleasure to meet you. Now, is there anything else that you'd like to stare at?
I am looking to sell hides.
Right, so, right, so. Well, unfortunately, I ain't going to be making any offers on those. I suppose that you would. So, she's the one that runs Kester's Leather Goods.
So he explains that she's the one that runs Kester's Leather Goods. He says that he wouldn't be able to make an offer.
And what would you make an offer on, strange little creature?
A glint appears in his eye, and he says,
Well, if you ever come across any used weapons or used clothes or armor, I would be interested in those.
You trade in used clothing?
Lightly used, mind you, and preferably if the blood stains are not quite so deep.
Joken nods his head. I will remember you.
Also, if you ever find any unusual goods, then I would love to hear from you.
What sort of unusual items does one find in the swamps?
Well, sometimes you find crates that seem to have been dropped off by carriages or perhaps people that were trying to get them somewhere without paying taxes, those kinds of things.
Like a criminal?
Oh, I mean, yes, a criminal, yes. And what better thing would it be for those criminal goods to end up with some honest shopkeeper's hands where he can charge honest prices for them and recirculate them into society?
This sounds like basic economics to me.
But now you're speaking my language, my good fellow.
Very well. He'll turn away without listening to or even like saying a goodbye. His glassy eyes just peel aside.
yeah, and you continue your way, getting through the town after, and you've looked at the lizard man kind of enough, and you surmised if you stayed any longer that the halfling would keep speaking with you. You make your way through town, and as you get to the stone bridge, you see that it is ancient. It's got to be far older than the city of Saltmarsh itself. It's worn and weathered, and even though it has stood the age of time, you see running along the entire length of the bridge on the sides are beautiful carvings that have been put into the sides of the stone. The carvings all depict creatures that look vaguely like sharks swimming, and they're in various poses. Like one is halfway turning, the other one is completely straight. One looks like it's coming right at you. It's as if you were to be dropped in a shark tank in a glass and be just watching a bunch of sharks swim around and do their. However, what types of sharks these are, or what, who knows? They may not even exist anymore.
I think he maybe just looked at him with interest.
They look old. That's all you know. You look at them for a while and you decide, well, I'm going to continue on my way. As you're crossing the bridge, you feel kind of nauseous and you begin to get a bit of a headache. The second that your feet hit the other side of ground and you're no longer standing on the stones of the bridge, you notice that the sensation goes away.
Feels very uncomfortable and looks at the bridge, at others that are like walking across, and looks for any signs of discomfort.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you kind of look, but maybe if you were to look closely, you might be able to notice something.
Yeah, I think he's just gonna shake his head at this time. Move along.
You continue and you cut off to your right hand side and you start making your way up the road, which begins to go up a hill. You pass a few houses. Walking up, you see that there is three main buildings. You don't know what the one in the back is, but one to your right is clearly the workshop, and the one to your left is clearly some kind of retail store.
Mhm.
Above, in the middle, you see a post that sticks up out of the ground that says Tester's Leather Goods.
He will head to the workshop, I think, to see if there's any artisans in there at that time. Before he enters, he's going to lay his packs at his feet and he's going to begin to spread out full length of both hides.
And you find it to be full of activity. Leather armor, you see chaps, you see dust coats, you see all sorts of things being crafted, as well as some people in the back just tanning hides. There's probably a good 15 people at work, and you see a human female walking around, kind of like yelling some orders, and once every now and then, like tapping somebody's shoulder, pointing to something, walking up, double checking stitching on some stuff. She seems to be making her rounds. You would surmise that she's in charge.
That he will try and gain the attention of the owner woman.
How do you plan to get her attention?
He'll probably just walk in and stroll directly up to her with eyes
Hmm.
focused, like in a really unsettling way, just like directly on her
Hmm.
face and just stride directly up.
Yeah, she seems a little taken aback. Hello, stranger. How can I help you today? My name is Kiorna.
You are buying hides.
She looks a little puzzled and says, "Yes, yes, that's quite so. I'm not sure how you found out about that, but I always meet her."
I have acquired some, and he will turn and just begin walking back outside of the shop.
She makes a few like signals to a few other people to work on something, and then she follows you out and she says, "Okay, well, let's see what you. Oh, here we go." She spends a couple moments looking at them. She touches the anaconda. She goes, "Well, this one's all right. I could give you 7 gold pieces for this one." And then she looks at the crocodile hide and she touches it and looks at it. She goes, "Now this was done excellent. Did you procure these hides yourself?"
It was a most thrilling hunt.
"Well, if you ever get any hides that are as good as this one, I will pay you quite well." She rolls the anaconda up and then she rolls the crocodile up. She goes, "For the anaconda, I can offer you 7 gold pieces. But for the crocodile, and this is strictly due to the absolutely excellent condition in its in, I can offer you 40 gold pieces.
He does not even blink. The hides are yours. I have a question.
By all means.
I understand you are an artist.
Absolutely. And this is my canvas. And my canvas must be pristine. She pulls like her cloak back a bit, and you see that she's wearing very finely worked leather armor. It's got designs scrawled across it. You can see that it's got studs. Leather armor is my specialty, and with all of the adventures and things that are going on about town, we've been very busy. As a matter of fact, if you ever need any new armor, I would be happy to sell it to you myself.
You can do custom designs.
Absolutely.
I will draft such a design.
Well, as soon as you have someone that can draw it out for you, bring it by and we'll begin work right away.
He nods his head and, without another word, takes his coin and leaves.
As you're like leaving the leather workshop, a courier runs up to you. I have some correspondence for a Jokum. That would be you, sir?
That would be me, sir.
Very good. It is from Crag. Has this missive for you, and let's see here, it is prepaid. So here you go, sir. I hope you have an excellent day. And he hands you the letter.
I hope you have an excellent day. And he takes the envelope.
It's mostly just a thank you note. It says like, thank you so much for bothering to drop by the store and provide us with the illustrations. We're looking very forward to working with you, etc., etc. However, on the bottom it says, P.S. If you are looking for further work, I would highly recommend speaking with my good friend Eliane. There is something that has happened as of late he would like to speak with you about.
Most excellent.